All right, long overdue. Brooke Eden. We were just saying before we hit record with Brooke that back in our late 20s, we had hung out with Brooke she was doing a show with Chase Bryant at Joe's Bar in Chicago. I think it was a lot of fun getting to know Brooke. And then Brooke, you kind of have a really interesting story right now that's obviously everybody knows. And if they don't know, they're about to find out. But you finally found the acceptance and the love and wanted to kind of put that out there with Hilary, who your story is kind of a really cool story. Started on, as far as putting it out there on social media, I wanted to ask you first, back in January, you posted that video and I thought that was really well done and a good way to kind of put it out there and kind of just see how everything, all the love kind of pour in. Was there like, what's that moment like where you're finally saying, okay, no more, being in our bubble, maybe we're going to put it out there and let the world know who we are? Is there that moment when you hit publish and you see the video go up and you just sit back and go, all right, that felt like a huge weight off your shoulders?
Yeah. What's so wild about it is that I don't even think I knew the impact that it was going to make. Like, honestly, I had just been talking to my social media team and they were like, hey, you got to get on TikTok, girl. And I'm like, all right, got to try this out. Getting on this new platform. And
right.
So they were kind of teaching me how to make a video.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right, so I guess, I feel like I felt like at the time I had 4 years in between when I had last hung and like talked to my fans for real.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have like this whole different perspective on life that I'm living. Just everything is so different. And I was like, how do I put that in like an under 60-second video? And I also knew I was about to put out this music. And for some people that weren't paying really close attention, it was going to kind of come out of nowhere. Just like, oh, wait, what? What's going on? So I was just like, I'm just going to throw some video together, some content, and kind of just explain where I've been and where I am now. And let's just see what happens on TikTok. I truly had no idea what it was going to do. And yeah, I had like, I don't know, 100 friends on TikTok at the time. So I didn't really think it was going to do anything. And then, yeah, it got a lot of views and a lot of attention. And honestly, I had no idea what to expect, but the love that I did receive from it was amazing. And it was, I think, a really good way to start this new chapter of my music as well.
You mentioned in previous interviews and a little bit in your bio that initially there was some pushback and like some discouragement. Did that come from label or management or radio, or how was that kind of facilitated? And did that contribute to that hiatus, or was that more you just trying to find a way to really kind of hone in on your identity and who you are and what you want to say going forward?
Yeah. I don't really like to point out who it actually was, just, for saving their face, but higher ups on my team that were telling me that basically if I came out, my career was going to be over and I had to be ready for that. And I obviously wasn't ready for that. I have spent my entire life building this career. I feel like the life that I've built up to now has been a journey that I've taken with God. And I'm like, whoa. Like, you can't just throw this at me and say that like, this isn't going to work now. So yeah, it was, it definitely took some time for me to figure out how these worlds were going to coexist, how my identity and my career were going to exist as one. But really what happened was I was just really unhappy at the time. I was like just living a double life. I was one person to everybody on the outside, and then I was a completely different person to my friends and close family. And that's a really exhausting life to live.
Yeah.
Just, you have to remember what stories you've told some people and not others or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
It's exhausting. So I ended up actually getting ulcers in my small intestine, which are just really painful and basically impossible to live the life that I was living touring the way that I was. My doctor was basically like, hey, you are essentially bleeding internally. And the only way that you're going to heal from this is number one, laying off from touring, and number two, like whatever is going on in your life, whatever that stressor is that's putting all this stress on your body, like you need to fix that. And that was a huge wake up call for me, you know. But yeah, it took my body 3 years to heal from that. And then it also was just a emotional and mental journey to getting to this place of, you know, self-love and self-acceptance, and then being able to tell my story in a way that would inspire others and not, you know, get trapped in my own brain. I was so trapped in my own brain for so long. So now that I'm here, I was like, cool, I'm ready to tell my story.
It's funny you mentioned like, or Wes brought up the discouragement. We talk a lot on this podcast about like authenticity, and some of our gripes with Nashville specifically versus maybe like Texas a lot of times is like, there's one side has more of a bullshitter approach than the other. It seems to be a much more like created image a lot of times with especially major labels. So when I hear that, I get like annoyed. I'm like, even with that, it was like a thing. We all know like they go in the lab and they try to pump out another like pop country guy or whatever. But to hear it's like, even with that, they're like, oh, and it almost is like they don't have their finger on the pulse a lot of times just as a whole. Because when I hear that, I'm like, they should know better. You know what I mean? Given, you know, people are kind of waking up to the fact that it's like, screw it. Like, let people say what they want, be who they are. And from my perspective as a music fan in general, anytime I see an artist, wherever they are, and they're just like, you know, they're being open and honest, I automatically I'm like, okay, I like that person more, because it just comes through. And I don't know, do you look back and maybe it's your music, maybe just kind of the way you went about things, you go, man, I would have had so much more fun. It would have been such a more enjoyable experience, you know, having that worry, not to call it a worry, but like that thing that double life, however you want to phrase it. If that wasn't there, who knows how, you know, the ulcers and all these things, is it like, damn, or is it like, okay, that was my journey and now the new chapter begins?
Both, you know, definitely. I wish that there wasn't any of that. You know, I look back at my old interviews and I like, oh, I wish I could tell that girl it's going to be okay. You know, I was very robotic. I'm an all in or all out kind of a person. And I was just, you know, kind of living as a shell of a human. And when I look back at old interviews, I was just a robot. I was just answering with already answered questions and had no actual like soul in it anymore, because my soul was far gone. I mean, I was just a shell of a human. So yeah, I totally wish that I could go back and do things differently, and you know, things could have been different back then. But I do think that for whatever reason, that journey was essential to become who I am now. And I think that if it was just easy from the beginning, that wouldn't be the story of most queer people. Most members of the LGBTQ community go through some form of pushback. Mine so happened to be a really long time, but yeah, I'm happy that I am where I am now. But do I wish that it could have gone a hell of a lot faster and that I could have been myself the whole time? Hell yeah, I do.
Makes sense.
Do you think country music in the last 2 years has become more accepting of queer artists, or the fans or the labels or the radio? I mean, with TJ Osborne also coming out recently, and it seems like in your case and in TJ's, like there was a lot of love from fans and people in the industry and even the media. And it seemed pretty encouraging for other artists like yourself who might have been like Steve was talking about earlier, I got to hit that share button on Instagram or TikTok and, you know, break the news, so to speak, and might be a little bit less fear now that you and TJ have kind of inspired some more artists to come out themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think as far as Nashville as an industry is, it's always been very loving and accepting that I have known about, it's just a city of love. It's creative people who all live in the same place. We all want the best for each other. And I don't really think it's ever been the industry that was the issue. It was kind of like everyone's afraid of what everyone else is going to think. Everyone's like, I don't care. I don't care, about who you are. I just think that other people are going to care. And everyone's putting the blame on somebody else. And I think that, 2020 was awful in a lot of ways, but it was also very eye opening for a lot of social injustices and just shit that's been going down for a really long time that it's kind of risen to the surface. And I think it's also like, damn, we all were living in so much fear of like dying last year. And do we really have energy to hate somebody because of who they love? I just don't really think that there's that energy anymore. I don't think there's enough time for that anymore. And I also think that, yeah, the more people see TJ Osborne and me and just other artists, other queer people in general, and just have that visibility and that representation, the more that people realize, like, oh, you're my best friend. Got it. Like, you're just like me. And, we have a lot more in common than we have different. And yeah, I hope that it inspires others, no matter what their story is, no matter, what kind of puts them in a marginalized area, that it inspires them to just be themselves as well.
Have you received a lot of DMs and stuff from people and fans that are like, oh my God, your story, like means so much to me, like help me tell my parents or stuff like that?
Y'all, I'm like, I cry on the daily, just like happy tears of people just reaching out to say thank you. And yeah, like telling, like coming out to their families through my sunroof video or my Got No Choice video where Hilary's involved. And yeah, every single day. It's like the best reward to just know that you've affected somebody else's life and like helped them on this journey, because this journey is hard and it freaking sucks. But once you get to the other side, it's incredible.
You still deal with a lot of, I mean, social media these days, it can be awesome or it can be an absolute shit show.
Yeah.
You get used to the block button for some of the jackasses, just boom, block.
Oh yeah. I have no like room for negative energy at all. So like it's so seldom, but yeah, if someone starts to like spew hate on my page, no matter what it's about, it's just an immediate block. Like I don't even read it. I just like see it coming and I'm like, block. And it's great because now Instagram says like block this and any other account this user ever opened. And I'm like, cool.
I didn't even realize something with Instagram. I don't know when this came about, but now with like you get so many comments, you don't have to block somebody, but you can sometimes restrict them, because sometimes, so if you delete a comment, right, comments are coming, I'm like, okay, that was crazy, I'll just delete it and hope they don't repost it. And then the asshole comes back and goes, oh, so you're going to delete my comment. So now they have that restrict feature where it's like, if you don't want to block them, you just, they can say everything they want and they think people see it, but nobody does.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's pretty solid. I think that's how that works. I'm pretty sure, because it says restrict, and I think it says they can post, but nobody will see their comment or something. I think that's what it says. But I'm like, that's pretty solid.
I'm so happy you told me about that. That's hilarious.
Double check, but I'm pretty sure that's what the little blurb says when you hit it.
Oh, great.
There's a hide button too, where you can hide the comments so it's still there to them, but then not there to the rest of the followers. That might be,
yeah.
That could
use
that one too.
I'm just a little bit like,
fuck you, you're blocked.
yeah, like I don't want you coming to my shows. I don't want you to see my content. I don't want you to like bully anybody else on my page. Like
you're dead to me.
Don't have a place here. That's it. Like there's other people that I'm sure will be all about your bullshit, but I'm just not. So
yeah. Well, speaking of that and like doing content and like social media and stuff, Wes had a quote from TJ I didn't have down. Wes, can you bring that up?
Yeah, with last month being Pride Month, there's like a lot of like really cool content that comes out. But then TJ in a recent Billboard article was like, yeah, it's great, you know, but like come help me out in like fucking November, you know, if you really want to like help me like spread my word and kind of like help my music. And do you feel like that is kind of your situation as well, where there's a lot of people who center on kind of your personal life and in this news, and it's like, well, you know, I make music, so let's remember to keep talking about that too. Do you ever kind of feel like that? Or
I feel like right now, just because it's like so new, like this is
yeah,
such a new topic, especially in country music. It's new for both me and TJ in our lives in general. So I feel like, you know, it's kind of topical right now just because it's brand new. But
yeah,
I feel like, you know, the next album cycle or the next time we put out music, it'll be like, oh, this is the new music, instead of like, oh, they're coming out and this is the new music.
yeah,
Like it will just be like something that's already happened, everybody knows about it, and like you just don't really have to tell anybody anymore. It just is what it is, and here's my music, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little bit just like, this is our scenario. This
yeah.
is what it's like to kind of be some of the first people to do this and it be accepted.
That makes sense. That's
Yeah.
switching gears just for a second, because when you were talking about the ulcers, I assume you weren't allowed to drink alcohol when you had that, or right?
Mm-mm.
Because I saw on your Instagram you were doing some of these, you were making some cocktails recently on a couple videos, which they look great.
Thank you. They were delicious. I couldn't drink a long time, but I'm healed of my ulcers now. So
Nice.
back
So
back on the wagon.
what I was going to ask is, when we met you in our 20s, back then the hangovers weren't as bad. Now that we're in our early 30s, it's not as easy. Have you seen that, experienced that, and what's your go-to hangover cure if you kind of a little too much wine or whatever, or what's your drink of choice even to earn the
I'm a
hangover?
gin girl.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
I love gin. I think that I've kind of become like a professional drinker these days, where like I still have a hangover like once in a while, but
Mhm.
I'm more of a day drinker now. So like I'll drink during the day and like by the end of the night kind of tail it off and then wake up and you're like, cool, I'm good to go. I
That
had my
Yeah.
hangover while asleep.
that is it. And a Negroni is my favorite cocktail, by the way, so I'm a fan of gin. But
Nice.
that is so true, because as I've gotten older, what I realized, especially having a baby and stuff, was like the old days of drinking where you would like work out and prepare and get ready for like Thursday, Friday night or Saturday, and then you go so hard for so long into the night.
Yeah.
That type of hangover kind of can't happen. It can't happen anymore, because I just hit the wall at a certain point, even if I'm trying.
11:30 p.m.
Yeah, it's like I'm not staying up till 3. I'm not staying up till 3 in the morning drinking like back in the day.
I love that you said that, even if I'm trying, like even if I drink it really fucked up.
Oh yeah, and so, but the day drinking thing is so true, because you just start drinking the whatever it is throughout the day. You get that buzz, but then you tail off at the night. You get tired, and then you wake up and you're like, maybe you feel it for a little bit.
Maybe you have a beer with breakfast and
A Pedialyte, and you're good to go. It's so true. I drink less. Wes, would you agree? Like, you drink more often now at this age,
Yeah.
but less during those times by a lot.
Yeah.
And it makes it kind of it keeps you functional the
It's
next
like
morning.
2 or 3 beers 5 times a week versus 18 to 25 beers 2 nights a week.
Yeah, like on a Friday night. You know what I mean? I mean, those were
I think this is called adulting. Like
Right? We're growing up.
well, right, because I mean, oh god, like just you can't function. Like a hangover now at our age is what, like you take your age and it's like there's an equation for it. But I think
You just take the first number from that age, and that's how many days it's gonna take.
yeah, so it's like a third. If you're in your 30s, 3 days for a hangover, like a bad one.
Oh dang.
And then if you're touring, I gotta imagine that's one of the worst possible things you can possibly be doing, is like being on a bus and hungover and like driving everywhere and then having to do sound check and then try to find a time to take a nap. And then you want to probably eat crappy food, which you probably know you shouldn't before you perform. Is that kind of how it works if you're not careful when you're on the road?
Yeah. I remember one date specifically. We played the Billboard Hot 100 Fest at Jones Beach in New York. And I have family friends who live in East Islip. and they had made this like amazing Italian dinner. They pulled out like all these bottles of Caymus wine, and we were just drinking. Like, I don't even know how many glasses of wine I had, just because every time it got to like a quarter of the cup, somebody would come and fill my glass back up.
Italian hospitality.
Yes, Italian hospitality, exactly. So like, I get to the venue and I'm like, whoo, like, whew. I thought I had like 4 glasses of wine. It was probably like 6. I don't even know. But I just remember being at that festival and like being so excited to be there. It was the first like pop festival I'd ever been a part of. I was the only country artist on the entire festival. And I shared a fitting room with Marshmello. But yeah, I remember that day and just being like, damn, this is awesome. I feel so sick right now. Like, and it was a great show. We had so much fun. It was awesome. And I was also in my 20s back then. So I am very happy that I figured out, like, how to be a professional drinker.
The sweet spot. Yeah. Cause I feel like that'd be hard to get used to at first, especially if you some of these people that catch fame quick. You probably get so nervous and so jacked up. To over drink before the show, to me, seems so easy to do.
Oh, yeah.
And then if you take 1 or 2 extra shots, you're kind of done for. You can't dial that back.
Yeah.
So I was just like, man, I mean, that's good to keep that in check. I wanted to go back to some of the songs you released recently. No Shade, Sunroof, Got No Choice. It's like a storyline with your fiance Hilary in mind, kind of going throughout. Was that the plan going in, or did you stop and say, did you start to see a kind of connection with the songs as you were writing them?
Yeah, I wrote Sunroof and Got No Choice like almost 4 years ago now. So those had always been like in my head of like, hey, this is the new sound that I am always striving for. These are things I want to say. Like, I've just always really liked those songs. And when we were choosing songs, we actually had a completely different song other than No Shade. And we wrote No Shade 3 days before we went into the studio. And we already had Got No Choice and Sunroof slated to be recorded. And then I wrote No Shade and was like, holy crap, this is a story. Like, this is the story of someone going through something really, really dark, coming up out of that as a new person, a happier person, a brighter person. That person finding love and finding the struggles and the beauty within those struggles of love, and going on with their lives. And I didn't realize it until 3 days before we recorded. So I don't want to act like I'm like some genius who had this grand idea the whole way. It just so happened to fall into place a couple days before we went into the studio.
That's pretty solid. One of the cooler things recently that went viral in a few different spots was when you were at the Opry and Trisha Yearwood and you performed together, and she kind of changed the words around. Did you know she was going to change the words around to kind of fit your story, I assume, or no?
Yes and no. So She called me a couple weeks before that Opry performance and said, hey, I really want to do something with you to celebrate Pride Month. And I think it would be really cool to change the words of She's in Love with the Boy to She's in Love with the Girl. And what if we did that at the Opry? And the first thing I said to her was like, are you sure? Like, is that the audience that, you just don't know who's going to be at the Opry and what the response is going to be? She was like, you know what, girl, this is country music. Authenticity is what this whole genre is about. And I just believe that love is love, and we can't just talk about it. We have to do something about it. And so I don't really care if people don't like it. Like, we're moving forward. And of course I just started like bawling, crying, because I thought how cool this iconic country artist wanting to in such an active way support that love is love. And so it was kind of funny how we went into it, because we had a rehearsal with the Opry band, and it was just Trish and I in the band, and we were just kind of figuring out who's going to sing this part. We didn't really know like what either of us were going to sing until the day of. and we just kind of like sussed it out in rehearsal, and she was just like, we'll figure out how we do this last verse, and I'll take that part and you take this part. And I didn't know she was going to change the words until we were on stage.
Yeah.
I didn't know she was going to change the words to like Brooke and Hilary
Yeah.
until we were on stage. So I knew we were changing the words to She's in Love with the Girl for the last chorus. But the whole like putting our actual story into it was like, something that she did on her own, like on the spot, to kind of like surprise us, which was super, super cool.
Yeah, she seems like, we never met her, but she seems like one of the nicest people of all time. Like when you just watch, like even when you watch her on Food Network too, even when it's like non-music related, you're just like, wow. Like,
yeah.
Have you had any of Trisha's Southern cooking?
Not yet, but
maybe you could be a guest on the show. She has a lot of guests on there. I've seen.
Yeah.
It looks pretty damn
cooking up in that area. We'll see.
Pretty damn good. And before COVID, right? You opened for Garth somewhere, didn't you?
Isn't that the picture behind you? Yeah.
Behind me,
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy. I didn't even have a single out. I hadn't had music out in like years. And Garth Brooks called 10 days before a show in Oregon, was like, do you want to open the show? And I'm like, Garth, yes, I do. Then I got off the phone and I was like, I don't even have a band right now. Like, I have to call old members of my band and like hope they can play. And we kind of like threw this band together of like these great musicians, and played 10 days later in front of 70,000 people. It was insane.
Jesus,
but yeah, I mean, the two of them are just genuinely the coolest freaking people on the planet. And like, you were like, Trisha just seems so nice. Yes, she is nice, but she's also like the wittiest person in the room. Like, always has a joke ready, just very funny, very just like not professional, just very like chill. You know what I mean?
That.
Not stuffy, just like very chill. And Garth is the same way. Like, anytime that you see Garth when he's not on stage, he's in sweatpants and a ball cap. He's just so sweet and cool, and like just such a sweet like dad vibe.
Yeah, his Inside Studio G, he gets awfully emotional with the tweets and stuff. I saw this weekend. He just came back and performed in Vegas, I believe. A lot of people, and is that the biggest crowd you've ever performed in or performed for? Yeah, I was gonna say that's pretty insane.
It was absolutely crazy. Yeah, went out on stage, had no idea. Like, you're an opening slot, so you have no idea how many people are actually going to be in the stadium when you're playing.
Right.
And it was a full state. I mean, it was crazy, y'all.
I feel like Garth fans get there early. They're just like ready to go.
They're there for the long haul. They want every single ounce of that night, which they should. I mean, his show is the best show I've ever seen ever. And I'm sure a lot of people would tell you that, but it's just, he has so much energy, and the crowd is so just there in the moment, like soaking in every ounce of it. It's just, I mean, getting to perform for a Garth audience is such a treat.
Does Garth work out a lot? Because he's an animal up there. And for a guy who's like as old as my dad, I feel like my dad would not be able to hang. And he works construction, so he's in decent shape. But
yeah, dude,
just bench pressing cars back there and stuff.
He's like a burly dude. Like, he just he does look so strong. I don't know if he works out.
Well, sometimes on like Trisha's Southern Kitchen, is that what it's called? You'll see Garth kind of doing some stuff in the field, and you're just always like, huh, like, is he actually like flipping those cars around or those tires around? I don't know. But I mean, Hilary, if I'm not mistaken, she kind of works with Garth, right?
Yeah.
So you probably got to know Garth a little bit more outside of just opening for him, and kind of got to see some of this, what you're talking about, like totally. Trisha and Garth behind the scenes, so to speak.
Yeah, which is so nice because, like, she works for both of them. With Garth and Trisha, and she's worked with them for 5 years now. And yeah, I mean, it was very nice to have met them before like I did anything professional with them, because like the first time that you meet Garth and Trisha, you're like, oh my God, I'm about to meet Garth and Trisha. Like, these are icons of this genre that I love so much. And it's just really nice to know them before, because you kind of get out the jitters and like, they're real people and super genuine, and like, yeah, it's really nice to kind of have, you know, to have that moment before you get on stage to like know like, okay, Garth is like a good dude. I don't have to worry about, you know, they always say like, don't meet your heroes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just the complete opposite with them. The more that you're around them, the more that you just love them and see what amazing real people they are.
It's good to know.
You don't have to name names, but is there any heroes you've met where you were like, that's a bummer?
We tend to see a lot of people say yes, which is pretty.
And they usually tell
demoralizing.
us afterward, wink, wink.
Yeah, no, honestly, no. Like
That's
Gretchen
great.
was a huge one for me. Like, you know, in the early 2000s, like I just loved her voice so much. I loved the rasp in her voice, and like learned a lot of my rasp from her. And I met her at a festival when I opened up for her back in Florida, and she was so freaking cool and so nice. And I met Dolly Parton. She was super cool. Obviously, like she had us on her tour bus and just sat down with us for like 30 minutes and chilled. Shania Twain was amazing. I mean,
Jeez, that's good to know.
honestly, like so many, what's so cool about country music is that you don't really get to stick around very long around here unless you're a good human. And I think that's just something that's like so different from a lot of different genres of music. Is like Luke Bryan is like one of the nicest people in the entire freaking world. And everybody who meets him, everybody who knows him will tell you that. Like, just so nice. And so I love that about our genre is that like you kind of get kicked out of the club if you're going to be an asshole, you know?
Yeah.
Like you just don't get to stay around that long.
You named your dog after Dolly, right? I think I saw.
I did, yeah. As soon as I met her, she was just like feisty but sweet. I'm like, that's a Dolly, man.
That's a great name for a dog, actually. The engagement story, the last thing we wanted to ask you, and then about your upcoming plans for hitting the road again.
Yeah.
Your engagement story, you had some awesome shots. I just saw the one in Sedona, Arizona, I believe, but there was a lot more to it that you guys kind of planned or didn't plan. And was that like it must have been a fun, but kind of, because I saw the people doing exclusive on it, I believe. Engagement story wise, it crazy, right?
So crazy. Yeah. So Hill and I have been together for 5.5 years. And so we're both like, you know, we wanted to have that moment for each other. So we were like, you know, we both want to propose. We both want to have that moment. So we didn't plan anything, but we did have we didn't plan anything together. Mm-hmm. But we did have our best friend, Ford Fairchild, who is also our photographer, my creative director. He was kind of like the middleman between us. So if like one of us was going to end up proposing the same weekend, he would have made that not happen. So, excuse me. So anyways, Hilary went one weekend, just so happened that like 3 of our best friends who I wanted to be there for my proposal couldn't be there that weekend. So she did it, I think it was May 13th, and surprised me one morning with a flight out to Phoenix, and then we drove to Sedona. Our best friend Ford was there, and she had flown him in the night before, and he kind of sussed out the area. She proposed to me in a private pool at this resort that we stayed at, and then was like, I can't get on one knee here, but I will get on one knee at some point this weekend. So the pictures that you see are when she actually finally got down on one knee, and it was on this hike that we went on in the Red Rocks, and it was beautiful. And then thank God I had just so happened to plan my engagement to her, my proposal to her the weekend after that. And I proposed to her. She loves our skyline in Nashville. So I proposed to her on a rooftop. Our dog Dolly brought out the rings to her on her collar. And then her whole family and a lot of our close friends came up from this like secret staircase that they have at the Virgin rooftop. And we had a second engagement. So I just thought it was really fun to, you know, both have that moment. And I encourage that for like any couple, not just same-sex couples. I think it's, you
Yeah,
know,
that sounds pretty fun, honestly. Puts a little pressure on the other person a little bit too, because
Yeah.
I know it's like I had I did it in Europe when my wife and I went on our first like big trip, and the entire time I had it in my pocket, I was panicked. I'm like, do I do it here? Am I too drunk? Are we too like, you know,
it
like
feels like a bomb in your pocket.
yeah, it feels pretty terrifying. So yeah, I mean that's well done, and the rings are really cool too. I think I saw a picture. They're not your. They were, yeah, they were really cool. Yeah.
Thank you. We decided we wanted stackers, and I know most people probably get an engagement ring and then the wedding ring later. We're like,
Yeah.
we're not traditional. We don't care. We just want to do it all right now.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
Well, yeah, we will eventually get married, but I don't really. I guess we'll take off like one of the rings and put it back on for the actual ceremony. But
I think it's one of those things that you can do however the hell you want. And so many people like get stuck in a lot of like, oh, I'm supposed to do it this way. I'm supposed to do it that way. I'm supposed to have this. I'm supposed to have that. And it's like, do whatever the hell you want. Like,
yes.
It's so annoying. Yeah, just go. Just do it. It's your wedding.
Yeah. And like, what do these traditions mean anymore anyways? You know, it's like whatever you want to do.
Last thing I wanted to ask, and thanks again, this was a lot of fun catching up. You're back to playing music. COVID, it's amazing we're seeing all these videos from all these different artists out there, and people are absolutely maniacal and so excited to be out there listening to live music again. It's got to be really exciting to look ahead and be like, I get to do this again, and especially now having your story out there the way you have and feeling that confidence. What's the rest of the 2021 looking like and going into the next year?
Yeah, so I have a slew of shows coming up. Actually, I'll be at Exit in Nashville next week for like my first headlining show in Nashville in a very long time. So I'm so pumped about that. Some surprises at that show. And then I'll be in Chicago in a couple months. So I'll hit y'all up. Michigan, Louisville, Atlanta, Nashville Pride. It's just a lot of really fun stuff coming up. North Carolina. And I'm also recording more music this year. So yeah, just a little bit of all the good things. And I'm very happy to get back on the road.
Well, Brooke, hopefully we see you soon, and maybe you'll make one of those cocktails. What was the last one you posted in the last video?
I think it was the Got No Choice. Is it the champagne one?
Oh, maybe. Okay. Surprisingly, what was Aperol Spritz when we were in Europe for my wedding?
Love Aperol Spritz.
I was like, don't knock it. I was like, I finally had an Aperol Spritz, and you're just like, this is amazing. Is that Prosecco technically? But it's all kind of the same.
I love anything with bubbles. So.
Oh, we got Dolly to say goodbye here.
Yeah, we just got back from Florida, and Hilary just went and picked her up from a friend's house. So this is the first time I've seen her in a little bit.
Oh, nice.
Oh, she's excited.
Well, perfect way to end it with Dolly there. Brooke, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see you. Can't wait to share your music and continue to share your story.
Oh, thank you so much. So good to see y'all. Hope to see you in real life soon.
Same. See you, Brooke.